Have you ever wondered why bad things happen to good people? Today, on this fascinating journey, we will explore one of humanity's deepest mysteries through the story of Job, a tale of faith, despair, and the eternal quest for justice. But wait, what if I told you this ancient story holds surprising answers for our modern lives? Get ready to challenge everything you thought you knew about adversity, faith, and divine justice. Don't miss a single moment of this revealing journey. In this biblical story from the book of Job, we find a wealthy man named Job, who lived in a region known as Uz. He had a large family and enormous herds. Job was an upright and just person, always committed to living a moral life and maintaining a disciplined relationship with God. In the land of Uz, there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters and owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yokes of oxen, 500 donkeys, and a large number of servants. He was considered the greatest man among all the peoples of the East. Job's sons used to hold feasts in their homes on their birthdays, and they would invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. After a period of feasting, Job would organize a purification ritual for them. Early in the morning, he would offer a burnt sacrifice for each of them, thinking, "Perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." This was Job's regular practice, as described in the first chapter, verses 1 through 5. God highlighted Job's virtues to Satan. However, Satan argued that Job was righteous only because God abundantly favored him. One day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord asked Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him, a blameless and upright man who fears God and shuns evil." "Does Job fear God for nothing?" Satan replied. "Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land." These dialogues between God and Satan are narrated in the book of Job, chapter 1, verses 6 through 10. Satan challenged God, saying that if he were allowed to inflict suffering on Job, Job would curse God. God allowed Satan to torment Job to test this bold claim, but forbade him from taking Job's life. "But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face," Satan declared. "Very well then," the Lord said. "Everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself, do not lay a finger." Satan then left the Lord's presence. These events are described in Job, chapter 1, verses 11 through 12. Job received 4 messages in one day, informing him that his sheep, servants, and 10 children had died, victims of raiders, robbers, or natural disasters. One day, while Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing, and the donkeys were grazing nearby, and the Sabeans attacked and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, "The fire of God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, "The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, "Your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." These tragic events are described in Job, chapter 1, verses 13 to 19. In his grief, Job tore his robes and shaved his head, but still praised God in his prayers. "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. This response from Job is found in Job, Chapter 1, verses 20 to 22. Satan appears in heaven again, and God gives him another chance to test Job. This time, Job suffers from terrible skin sores. Job's wife tries to persuade him to curse God and give up his life, but he resists and tries to endure his suffering. Two intertwining plots, one celestial and one earthly, unfold. Events on earth result from something that has already occurred in heaven, similar to the warfare on earth that follows heavenly conflicts as seen in the book of Revelation. Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, three of Job's friends, come to comfort him, sitting silently with him for 7 days in respect for his mourning. On the 7th day, Job speaks, initiating a dialogue in which each of the four men offers poetic descriptions of their struggles, compares life and death to light and darkness. He wishes he had never been born and that his birth had been shrouded in darkness, feeling that life only increases his agony. Eliphaz responds by saying that Job, who once consoled others, now admits he was never truly aware of their suffering. Eliphaz concludes that Job's pain must be due to some sin he committed and recommends that Job seek God's favor. Bildad and Zophar agree, suggesting that Job must have done something wrong to provoke God's justice and argue that he should try to demonstrate more innocence. Bildad even supposes that Job's children brought death upon themselves. Worse yet, Zophar insinuates that whatever wrong Job may have committed would deserve far more suffering than he has received. Job reacts to each of these comments, irritated to the point of calling his sympathizers useless physicians who disguise their help with lies. As described in Job chapter 13, verses 1 through 4, "My ears have heard and understood all this. What you know, I also know. I am not inferior to you. But I desire to speak to the Almighty and to argue my case with God. You, however, smear me with lies. You are worthless physicians, all of you." Job questions why God judges people based on their actions when he could easily correct or forgive them. Job is perplexed as to how a human can ever fully satisfy God's justice, since God's ways are mysterious and beyond human comprehension. Additionally, humans cannot persuade God with their words. God is not deceived, and Job admits that he doesn't even know enough to defend his case before God. Job yearns for someone to mediate between him and God so that he won't be condemned to Sheol, the underworld. Job believes that in heaven there is a witness or redeemer who will testify to his integrity. As he expresses in chapter 19, verse 25, "I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand on the earth." And in chapter 16, verse 19, "Even now my witness is in heaven, my advocate is on high." The suffering becomes unbearable for Job, and he grows bitter, anxious, and fearful. He laments the injustice of God allowing wicked people to prosper while he and many other honest people suffer. Job wants to confront God and protest, but cannot find him physically. He thinks that wisdom is hidden from humanity but resolves to pursue it by fearing God and shunning evil. Eventually, God intervenes in the dialogue. Throughout the first round of speeches, Job asked God 36 times to speak to him, and now his wish is granted. On 2 occasions, God speaks to Job, and both times this happens from within a storm. There is a certain humor in how God addresses Job. God reminds Job that he is the creator of everything. He lists his impressive acts of creating and sustaining the world, asking Job if he could possibly match that work. God ends by asking whether Job is in a position to judge, implying that it is presumptuous for Job to think that God should explain himself to him. Job feels very small and eventually responds, "I am unworthy, how can I reply to you? I put my hand over my mouth. I spoke once, but I have no answer, twice, but I will say no more." In the second encounter, God does not speak of himself as the creator, but focuses on 2 of his creatures, the behemoth, likely the hippopotamus, and the leviathan, possibly a crocodile. With humor, he asks Job for his thoughts about these creatures, as if they might hold the answers to life's great problems. Job is reminded that he cannot understand God, the animal kingdom, or the moral world. The main point is clear. Why are you trying to argue with me? Job acknowledges God's omniscience and that no plan of his can be thwarted. He realizes his questioning of God was entirely inadequate, despises himself, and repents in dust and ashes. Although Job's encounter with God is humbling, his core problem is resolved as he reconnects with God. The dialogue offers a magnificent and unexpected climax to the book. In the epilogue, the text transitions from poetry to prose. When Job accepts that he should not blame God for his actions, God restores Job's fortunes. Job receives new children, 7 sons and 3 daughters, as well as properties, camels, and flocks, making him far wealthier and happier than before. Job is rehabilitated as God's servant. However, Job's 3 friends are severely reprimanded by God, who declares that they have not spoken rightly about Job. This indicates that we should not take their speeches as absolute truths. Remarkably, even in God's 2 speeches, he does not answer Job's questions or reveal his wager with Satan. Job did not need to know what was happening in heaven, because God had his reasons for allowing Job to suffer. The book of Job highlights a key distinction between the Jewish and Christian understandings of this text. In the Old Testament Jewish perspective, life's temporal problems were not viewed in light of eternity. Both good and bad people went to the same place, Sheol, a shadowy realm where departed spirits slumbered. In contrast, Christians see suffering through the lens of Christ's work and the promise of eternal life. For Christians, the trials of this world pale in comparison to the life that awaits in heaven. In this context, the book of Job takes on profound significance. Job declared in one instance that he would meet God after death, but this was not a recurring theme, nor did Job understand how it might happen. However, Christians interpret the promise of resurrection as central to their faith. The hope for vindication at the end of time resonates deeply with the Christian understanding that God's justice will ultimately prevail. By exploring Job's incredible journey, we uncover lessons of faith, resilience, and justice that remain profoundly relevant today. But the journey does not end here. We have much more to discover together. If you enjoyed this exploration, imagine what more we can uncover. Every story we share is a new opportunity to unravel mysteries, find inspiration, and transform our view of the world. So don't miss out. Subscribe now and hit the like button to support our work. Comment below with your reflections and share this video with friends and family who could also benefit from these extraordinary stories. Together, we will continue our quest for wisdom and inspiration. See you in the next video, as we close another chapter in our journey.